Hello, my name is Andrew Wachter, and I'm a research associate at the National Center for Juvenile Justice and also the project manager for the Nevada Center for Juvenile Justice Innovation, Nevada's evidence-based resource center. To support the adoption of evidence-based programs and practices across Nevada, the Nevada Center for Juvenile Justice Innovation provides research, training, and technical assistance to a wide variety of juvenile justice stakeholders. This video is designed to increase the knowledge about the principles of risk, need, and responsivity and how they can be used to improve outcomes for youth, families, and the communities in which they reside. Historically, the juvenile justice system struggled to identify what works to rehabilitate youth and reduce reoffending. However, research has helped identify evidence-based programs that work to reduce reoffending. In addition, research has also taught us that there is an effective way to use these evidence-based programs by applying risk-need responsivity principles. The risk-need responsivity concept, developed by Donald Andrews and James Bonta, underlies some of the most widely used risk-need assessment instruments, including the YLS. The use of risk-need responsivity principles has become one of the most influential models guiding treatment interventions in juvenile justice, and offers a shift away from punitive practices towards more individualized assessment and treatment of youth to help youth achieve long-term success. As Nevada engages in juvenile justice reform and the use of evidence-based programs and practices, it's imperative that the risk-need responsivity framework guide the use of treatment programs and interventions. Let's take a closer look at each of these three principles. The first principle, the risk principle, helps us determine who to target for treatment and intervention. The risk principle states that the levels of treatment and supervision should be matched with the youth's risk level to reoffend. In Nevada, the YLS is used to determine a youth's risk to reoffend and is measured across 4 levels: low, moderate, high, and very high. A youth identified as low risk means the youth is at a low risk to reoffend without any treatment intervention. Conversely, youth identified as high risk are more likely to reoffend without treatment. Therefore, the most intense and costly interventions should be reserved for moderate and high risk youth to maximize reduction in reoffending and conserve scarce resources. On the other hand, low-risk youth are best served with minimal intervention or none at all. Research has shown that only a small percentage of low-risk youth reoffend when they receive no treatment, and there is evidence to suggest that providing intensive rehabilitative programs and supervision to low-risk youth may actually increase their risk of reoffending. Furthermore, low-risk youth should not receive intensive interventions to minimize interactions between low-risk and high-risk youth. Let's look at some common ways in which the risk principle is applied in practice. The risk principle requires the identification of a youth's risk and needs by using a validated research-based risk-need assessment tool. In Nevada, the YLS is the risk-need assessment tool of choice. It's also important to conserve intense, costly interventions for higher-risk youth who need them the most. Therefore, it's important to have effective diversion opportunities available for low-risk youth. To respond to each youth individually based on their unique risk and needs, and to do so in a consistent manner, it's important to develop service matrices that identify which services are available and appropriate for youth at each risk level. Case plans should also be based on risk level because low-risk youth require less time and attention than higher-risk youth. Higher-risk youth should receive more hours of treatment programming than lower-risk youth. Although the exact dosage hours has not been well defined in the research, practical guidelines recommend up to 99 hours of programming for low-risk youth, between 100 and 199 hours for moderate risk, and 200 or more hours for high-risk offenders. Lastly, probation supervision levels should also be based on risk level, with higher-risk youth receiving more supervision and contact. The second principle, the need principle, helps us determine what to target. The need principle asserts that treatment programs and interventions must focus on the criminogenic needs of the youth. Criminogenic needs are dynamic or changeable risk factors that drive or are directly related to delinquent behavior. such as substance abuse, as opposed to a static risk factor like age at first offense or prior delinquent history that can't be changed. Criminogenic needs are responsive to treatment, and when they are the target of a youth's treatment plan, the youth's risk to reoffend can be reduced. Youth often have many needs that should be addressed, but it's important to recognize not all of these needs are associated with delinquent behavior. Research has identified 8 risk need factors, often referred to as the central 8, that are major predictors of delinquency. 7 of the 8 risk factors are criminogenic and include antisocial personality, which includes low self-control, hostility, adventurous pleasure-seeking, disregard for others, and callousness; pro-criminal attitudes, or thoughts, values, and ideas that are supportive of criminal behavior; antisocial peers who share antisocial beliefs and attitudes and engage in criminal behavior; substance abuse; poor family relationships, including poor parenting skills, parents who engage in criminal activity themselves, and unstable marriages; poor school and/or work performance, depending on the youth's age; and lack of structured pro-social activities. The 8th risk factor is criminal history, and because it is static, it's not included in the 7 dynamic criminogenic factors just mentioned. As I mentioned earlier, not all of the youth's needs are associated with criminal behavior. Youth often have many general needs when they come into the juvenile justice system. Practitioners should be aware of these general needs, such as self-esteem, major mental health or psychological disorders, and physical health, but they should not be the primary targets of case planning efforts to reduce reoffending. In some cases, these needs may be barriers to progress on treatment interventions, and in those cases may become more important to address. Let's look at how we can apply the need principle in practice. To apply the need principle, youth must first be assessed using a validated risk need assessment tool such as the YLS. You may notice that the domains of the YLS are aligned with the central 8 risk factors. Several indicators within each domain help determine the extent to which that risk factor may be a problem area for the youth. Once identified, the risk and need factors, as well as specific evidence-based interventions to address them, should become the focus of the youth case plan. Prioritize programming and interventions starting with the highest identified need area. Remember, treatment interventions must be tied to specific criminogenic factors in order to be the most effective at reducing reoffending. Lastly, the responsivity principle addresses how interventions should be delivered to youth to be most effective. There are 2 components of the responsivity principle, general and specific. General responsivity asserts that cognitive behavioral strategies based on social learning theory are the most effective way to teach people new behaviors. Such approaches have been shown to be most effective with offenders as a whole. Furthermore, such strategies are most effective when they include a respectful and collaborative alliance between the practitioner and the youth, and use structured cognitive behavioral interventions such as role-playing, modeling, skill building, and positive reinforcement. Specific responsivity focuses on the unique characteristic and needs of each youth that should be considered when delivering interventions. These characteristics include gender, age, ethnicity, learning style, motivation to change, cognitive abilities, mental health, culture, and personal strengths. External factors such as unmet basic needs and lack of transportation also impact responsivity. To use the responsivity principle in practice, you need to be knowledgeable about the programs you refer youth to, as well as the unique responsivity factors for youth in your care. These factors may be identified in the YLS or through conversations with the youth you work with. Try to use programs that use cognitive behavioral strategies and can respond to the youth's characteristics. For example, youth without strong reading comprehension or writing skills should not be placed in interventions that require large amounts of reading or journaling. Practitioners should identify these potential barriers, leverage strengths, and modify treatment plans to maximize treatment effectiveness and increase the likelihood of success for youth. In summary, the risk-need responsivity framework states that the intensity of the interventions we use should be matched to the youth's level of risk to reoffend. interventions should target criminogenic needs identified by the YLS, and that the style and delivery of interventions should match the youth's ability and learning styles. Research shows us that applying the concepts of risk-need responsivity can effectively reduce recidivism by up to 35% when implemented in certain settings. Furthermore, research has shown us that not applying risk-need responsivity principles in service delivery is not only ineffective, but can also be detrimental to youth treatment outcomes. Applying the risk-need responsivity framework in Nevada's juvenile justice system will ensure that the right youth receives the right program or intervention for the right amount of time and in the right way. Thank you for your continued efforts to improve the lives of the youth and families and the communities in which they live across the state of Nevada. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and don't forget to stay connected with the Nevada Center for Juvenile Justice Innovation by visiting our website and signing up for updates.